Hello, everybody. My name is Raul. I'm going to be co-hosting a great webinar today. We're going to be speaking about going beyond PowerShell with Goverlan Reach. I am joined today by Adam Bertram, who you all know as Adam the Automator. Adam, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Okay. Well, as Raul said, my name is Adam Bertram. I'm a Microsoft MVP. That means I'm just out and about in the community, and I know a thing or two. At least I pretend to sometimes. But automation, I'm big into automation, as you can tell by my persona, Adam the Automator, and do a lot of cloud stuff, DevOps stuff, a lot of training through Pluralsight. And a quick fact, I did collaborate with Goverlan on their really cool free utility called WMIX.
Yeah, so my name is Raul Ortiz. I am on the Goverlan team here. I am the VP for product support and client services. So a lot of you guys who are on the webinar now, you probably have spoken to me sometime in the past, helping you get through your day-to-day woes with Goverlan. I've been a system engineer for about 15 years now, supporting Microsoft technologies for the most part. I've also been in lots of different verticals here. Mostly of the have been financial trading institutions. So, so if any of you guys in the fintech area, I know your pains. So, with that being said, let's move on to a little bit about Goverlan. Let me tell you about our company and what we do here. We're originally founded in 1998. So we've been around the block for a while. We've been providing remote access and remote control solutions for companies all over the world. We expand through many different industries, and we've got a lot of great solutions for you guys, so you can check us out. Now, a little bit about Goverlan Reach. This is the product that we'll be talking about today. And Goverlan Reach is mostly, or I should say entirely, a remote IT support and administration software. So what that means basically is we have a great set of utilities that you guys can use to support your IT infrastructure, to get to the tools and tasks and things that you need way more efficiently. We also provide a great automation piece, which is really what we're going to be talking about today, and how it benefits and complements the different areas of PowerShell. So that's what Adam and I were going to be covering today, and how that goes into the Meltdown Spectre stuff that you guys have been hearing about this whole time.
Yep. And as Raul said, I know we'll give you a link at the end, but I did recently did a review on Goverlan Reach on my blog. The product is great. We're not here to talk about Goverlan Reach specifically today. We're here to talk about Meltdown and Spectre.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Adam, tell me a little bit about what you know about Meltdown and Spectre.
I think if you haven't been living under a rock, if you hadn't heard about Meltdown and Spectre, this security vulnerability in the processor, not just a Windows patch, but actually a hardware problem that requires a BIOS update, which we'll learn about later. You have been living under a rock not hear about this thing, but I'm not big into InfoSec. I don't really know a whole lot. I can manage systems and automate stuff, but I think you can speak a little bit more to this than what I can, Raul.
So a little bit about how Meltdown and Spectre works, or what is Meltdown and what is Spectre? Firstly, Meltdown is a variant of Spectre, the vulnerability itself. So Meltdown affects Intel chips, as well as AMD chips, and even ARM-based processors. This particular vulnerability was discovered by a couple of people, including the smart guys over at Google Project Zero. Their job is literally to find zero-day vulnerabilities. And what's making this very difficult for everyone is that, you've got patches coming out for BIOS, you've got patches coming out for Windows, even patches coming out for browsers. And because none of the OEMs really know where to go with this, we're getting patches distributed and pulled every day.
Yep, and definitely, as Larry mentioned there on the chat, how does this? How can we relate this to Windows, and really, what did Microsoft do? I know that we're going to be talking about that here in just a second.
Well, as far as it relates to Windows, what Microsoft is doing is they're providing some patches based on the way that the kernel will operate to protect certain areas of memory. Usually you just whip out Patch Tuesday, you get these patches and you do what you have to do. But because this affects the way that the operating system deals with the processor and where the kernel deals with the processor, we're getting reports of people having blue screens after they've applied patches. We're getting reports after all kinds of things that are that are going wrong with this. So you have to be very, very careful when it comes to this.
Okay, so let me see what we can do with PowerShell. What is this? We'll have to figure out what we can do with PowerShell here. Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
get to the good stuff here. So yeah, as Raul was saying, I think we you kind of get the gist of what Meltdown and Spectre are, but how does that necessarily relate to PowerShell, Windows, and the Microsoft world? Well, Microsoft released this, and they said, here's this module, or there's a script, run it on your machine, and if you're vulnerable or not. They just gave you the base functionality. They're not going to give you the functionality to do 1,000, 5,000 machines at one time, and plus aggregate all that data back and figure out what you want to do. So if you're in even a small business with maybe 50 machines or something, that's 50 machines you're going to have to physically touch if you don't have some kind of other solution, and running this script on. It's just a pain, especially in the enterprise. It's just not feasible. You kind of have to put another tool or something else on top of that to actually make that run across a bunch of machines. So with that being said, I think Raul has, I don't know, mistakenly given me access to his machine. I don't know if that was a good idea or not, but
we did it with Meltdown Inspector.
We will see. So first of all, the Speculation Control PowerShell module. That module is available via the Microsoft TechNet site. So you can just Google Microsoft Speculation module, and it will give you to the TechNet site. But if you're running PowerShell version 5 or later, or have the PowerShell Get module installed on earlier versions, you can just grab this directly from PowerShell from the PowerShell Gallery repo. And to do that, we will have a command called find module. And find module goes out to the PowerShell Gallery and looks for different PowerShell modules. It doesn't have to be this one we're talking about now. There is thousands of different modules out there, and also scripts that people have uploaded, not just Microsoft, community people have uploaded like myself, to be able to grab modules and reuse them so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So right here, I have noticed that it is available in the PowerShell galleries. You can see here for the repository PS gallery, and it is at 1.0.4. I saw earlier when we were kind of practicing for this a few days ago, it was at 1.0.3. So if you if you grab a copy of this locally and run it and it works, you may not be always grabbing the latest and greatest copy, which you can do if you're running PowerShell Get here. We can get that directly from the PowerShell gallery. But that being said, so we now know it's in the PowerShell gallery. We can use the PowerShell pipeline to pipe that to install module, which is another command that we have available. And then since I'm not administrator, Raul unfortunately didn't make me administrator, didn't trust me that much. So we're going to have to just go over to use the current user scope, which is just going to install this module in the current user profile. It's not going to be a system-wide module. So once going to go through this process real quick. It's a really simple module to do. So now that we should have it installed, I can check by doing git command -module, and then if I can type it.
Is it possible to increase the font size in the console here?
All right, is that better?
Fantastic.
All right. So yeah, we just ran git command, and then a PowerShell module has a bunch of functions in it. So it looks like the speculation control module just has one single function called Get-SpeculationControlSettings. And we can just run this on this local machine. And you can see that it goes through and it enumerates a lot of different things with the CPU and the BIOS, and tells you what you need to do. It's more specifically, it just grabs out a few different things, outputs this. This is actually a PowerShell object in the background here, and gives you just some good information to let you know what you need to do to this machine, if you're vulnerable or not, what you need to do, that sort of thing. The biggest thing with this is you just notice that it provides a lot of information here, but the problem is this is all locally. You know, I'm just running Get-SpeculationControlSettings locally on this machine. I can't go out and run it remotely. I mean, technically you could, you know, you have to think about, to be pragmatic about these things. The PowerShell has a command called invoke command that people may be aware of, that has a computer name parameter to it. And we can say, you know, server 1, server 2, client 1, you know, whatever you do, and then do script block, get speculation control settings. But this would not work because the function get speculation control settings, the module is installed locally on this. If I run this now, that's going to try to run that function on those remote machines, and the module and the function aren't available on those remote machines. Now, it's possible, you know, anything's possible with PowerShell if you get down to it, but you have to really know, really know PowerShell and know how to run invoke command. There's things like the Windows firewall rules you're going to have to do if you don't have this set up already. You don't have PowerShell remoting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. You have to have some configuration done on your clients ahead of time to actually to get that to work. So that's kind of the big thing with that, is just, you know, it's there. The information is there. You can see how easy it is. You just run it and bam, you see what you want. But the real problem is just running that remotely on machines and gathering all that data back. But I think Raul has a good suggestion or a good solution for that, and which he'll show you right now.
Thanks, Adam. That's it's a lot of good info here. It really comes down to a lot of things when as far as deploying these things. There's a lot of hoops to jump through and so on. So what we have here is the Goverlan Reach console. And the Goverlan Reach console is where we have our section called process automations. When it comes to process automations, it's basically a series of things that you can put together and remotely execute on the system. So all of the resources, I'm just gonna let everybody know one more time, all the resources here, this module in and of itself will be available for download. At the end, you'll see the resources where the blog is published, and all the resources are there, including an explanation of that output, by the way, which is very, very important. You guys should read that, go through it, and make sure you're familiar with what applies to you, what doesn't apply to you. Now, when it comes here to the process automation itself, you'll be able to import this process automation into your system, and I'll just show you a little bit about how it looks on the inside. With the process automation, you choose your targets. These targets can be systems in Active Directory. It can be systems on your LAN that are not Active Directory based. It could be systems that are external to your network, right? So you'll be able to also run this on systems that are outside the organization as well. As far as the actions themselves, we have two actions configured, which is one of them is run a script. And this is running that script that Adam was referring to that we've slightly modified for speculation control. And that script will go ahead and test to see if the machine is available to run the command, test to see if the module is installed and so on, and install it if necessary. And it kind of takes care of a lot of the background. So that's the great part about the PowerShell part. Now, as far as executing that on a remote system, we can go ahead through our system, drop that script, run it, and get the report back in a format we can understand. The next part of it here is the actual report portion. So this here is the part where we decide we want to pull the information that the speculation control module runs. What we can also do is we can filter this information, right? So you can say, I only want to see things about the, let's say the Spectre part or the Meltdown part once you've decided what exactly you're looking for. And you can actually filter the actions even further. Let's say you don't want to push it out, or you don't want to report from all the servers, but you need it from all the workstations. So you can come into our view here and decide if you want to filter by all kinds of things. So that's the power of process automation as it is. So We've taken the PowerShell part, we modified it a little bit to do what we need to do, and then we put it into our system here for the actual deployment and execution.
Yeah, I did want to mention, yeah, something like that, like, you know, that run script part. This is the one thing that, you know, that a lot of people don't see when they talk about, well, I have to learn PowerShell, or all this is too hard. Well, the thing is, like, you don't have to be, you know, a PowerShell developer. I'm kind of a unicorn in the world, that there's not a lot of PowerShell developers that truly do everything in PowerShell. Most of the time, an IT pro, sysadmin, a manager, anybody like that, you don't have to learn the ins and outs of everything to do with PowerShell. What you need to do is learn just enough to be able to, you know, to inject it, to do the things that, you know, a lot of your tools like Goverlan can do much easier. You know, in this example, we're just getting a script from Microsoft to do this. But as you'll see in a little bit, you will see a really good way of that. Anything you can do in PowerShell, we can just dump it right here in the Goverlan into this tool, and it'll take care of everything else. It's kind of like the marriage of two really great products.
Now here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick off this automation, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what it looks like in the background. So here we have a list of systems that are queued up for execution. The software is getting them ready to execute, and it fires it off towards each machine based on the queue. Now we can process at any one time 64 simultaneous connections. So you don't, one of the other things that I know in my PowerShell experience is, okay, setting up jobs to run in the background for parallel execution. So here we can do that already for you, and then we can pop up the report. Now we've selected the Excel report format that Goverlan has built in. And some of the things you'll see here is the system that we've targeted. Of course, some metadata about it, like the OUs and when it was queried. But here you have basically the true false flags that came out of the PowerShell command itself. Now, what we're doing here is we are basically taking that modified script and running it against those systems, pulling the report back. You can, what's great about the Excel format is you can throw all your Excel kung fu at it, right? So all you guys who are really great at Excel, you can sort by columns, make pivot charts, and all that great stuff that you guys like to do with that. And you can see here we have all the details. And again, like I told you before, we can filter this information. So if you want to see all the systems that have the KVA shadow part patched up already, you can see that here.
Yeah, another good thing about here that you know, that I really like about Goverlan is that you can add and remove columns if you want. You know, if you need to add the BIOS version, like or any kind of other information. Really, the good thing I like about Goverlan is that, you know, sure, we could solve the Meltdown and Spectre discovery issue now, but if we can wrap this into Goverlan, we can do all kinds of other things. But you can extend that module to do whatever you want. That's a really good thing that I really like about Goverlan and using it for this application.
Yeah, and absolutely. One other thing, some quick ideas is, you know, you can add the BIOS version column to this, so that way you can see what BIOSes are patched or not patched. Because when you're doing your research, you'll see there will be, you know, Dell will release an update, and it'll have a new BIOS version, and you can put that next to it, as well as things like the CPU models. Because there are some lists out there that talk about specific CPU models. So you can put that information in the report, have it side by side with this, and really get some great detail into what's going on as far as Meltdown Inspector on your network.
But plus, yeah, you can filter on all that stuff too, right? Even if you didn't want it in the report, if you know for a fact that you don't want to target certain machines or certain CPU models, really, the sky's the limit, really, as far as the filtering too.
Yeah, and you can even put more automations that go with this. Every organization is different. Every network I consider basically as unique as a thumbprint, right? So every organization that you might need, you know, to do Spectre, and then you have to do some other things, it's really up to your imagination to bring together all the pieces so that you can report and distribute information as you need to. So this really here was about the intelligence gathering.
Yep, I agree. You know, we're going to briefly mention the next in the series of webinar, actually the remediation part. But yeah, there's definitely, this is, you know, coming from the background that I do, that I've written thousands and thousands of PowerShell scripts to do just about everything. You know, if you're able to to write enough PowerShell to be able to gather the information. You know, natively, Goverlan has no idea unless you tell it what Meltdown and Spectre are. There's not like a specific Meltdown and Inspector section, just like they can't put feature support for every single vulnerability under the sun in there. The key is to be able to write just enough PowerShell to gather that specific information that you have, that your organization has, or in this case, thousands of organization has, and then marry that with Goverlan to be able to just widely distribute that. Yeah, and that's really the great thing about process automation as a whole. It basically, you can build just about any process automation pieces that you need. So that's really the great part there. To tell you a little bit about the blog that we have here on our website, it basically goes over the things that we're talking about here. It gives you some insight into the output from the PowerShell module. It also gives you some insight into how you can do these things with Goverlan, as well as the versions you need and what you need to install and so on. And also the modified script you can download here. You can download the automation itself and import it here. And also you'll be able to find a link to this recording there. That's basically it for what we have for the actual parts of reporting on what your environment looks like. What we're going to be doing in the part 2 is we're going to be covering actually the deployment of updates. And we want to see some of these true false flags here start to go between, you know, from true to false and back. That's what you want to really see. You want to see that your environment is being taken care of. Now, one thing to note, I just want to throw it out there, whether or not to update, that's going to be up to you guys, because it's there's a lot of things going on out there. That being said, it's time to move on to the Q&A portion. We're going to give everybody, if anybody has any questions, please start to fire them off. And our moderators will be sending us some questions for us to answer. Will this work if our PowerShell execution policy is set to restricted, which is by default? When you deploy with Goverlan, we actually go ahead and set the execution policy to unrestricted so that you can do this, and then we set it back. Will it work with Goverlan V8? It's a good question. When it comes to Goverlan V8, you should be at least on 8.5. There's the support that was added for PowerShell in V8, so you do have that part covered. You're not going to be able to do the import, however. So as far as the import of the module, you should be on the very, very latest. So that's really the key part there. So for the most part, yeah, I would say that you should be on V9 for this to really work for you, because we've added so much functionality for this particular thing to run. Which one of the Excel results is the one giving information about Meltdown Spectre? Okay, that's actually a pretty good question. The idea behind that is you have to really understand how the PowerShell part works and what it's giving you. So I'll actually show that, because I think that's very, very important. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually open that report again, just to give everybody a really good view there. So I'm going to view that report, the last one that we ran, and we will go ahead and take a look. So when it comes down to Meltdown Inspector, you have to kind of look at something called branch target injection and kernel VA shadowing. So to be honest with you, I forget off the top of my head, but one of these is Spectre, one of these is Meltdown. So the output that we have in the blog is actually going to cover this, so you can really, really see. But one of these here will be covering down the Meltdown side, and one of these will be covering the Spectre side. One other thing we just want to cover real quick here, because I just took a note here. There is some documentation out there about there is some compatibility with antivirus systems with these patches. Some antivirus systems are not fully compatible, so that's where a lot of people are running into some issues. So what we've done as part of the modification of the PowerShell script is there is a registry key that the AV providers should be dropping on the systems, and we can actually pick up that registry key and tell you if your antivirus system is compatible. So as I mentioned already before, we're going to be doing a part 2, and that part 2 is going to be covering the actual patching part of it. So you can see those true and falses change depending on the outputs. So we'll be releasing another module, scope action module, or process automation
process automation module where it will contain all the bits and pieces and so on.
So yeah, I mean, just a little bit about, my sort of thing. I'm at adamtheautomator.com, and I did a review for Goverlan Reach a few weeks ago. And I also wanted to say that in the deck, I am on Twitter, probably too much, but yeah, since that script, the script that we worked on is a little different than, well, a lot different than the original one. It's going to really, if you really want to understand it, if you have any questions about some kind of niche application that you wanted to use the thing in with Goverlan, even without Goverlan, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. I'd be glad to help you out.
Excellent, excellent. And you guys can also reach out to us at Goverlan. You can get to us, phone, email, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're all there, and also, even live chat on our website. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to do that. And also make sure you take a look at that blog again. That's really has the comprehensive information for what's going on here. And we will definitely be ready to help anybody as they need to. So with that information, I just want to thank everybody. Thank you very much, Adam. I think it was very, very informative.
Thank you.
And that is the end of Going Beyond PowerShell Part 1. Make sure you guys stay tuned for Part 2, where we'll be covering some more good stuff. So I want to wish everybody a good day and see you guys later.